Dr. Arnold, thank you for joining us this morning. You were president in 2005. Tell us about what you remember about that year and the challenges you faced.
It was a busy year because Jim Cleary had been president the year before, and there had been a large PEIA grant, and so there was a lot of things that were sort of going on because I think the Academy was sort of changing a little bit from a sort of smaller, group of very active people to sort of a more of an academic society. I remember that Charles's work with ABIM had sort of been looked like it was coming to fruition, so there was sort of a lot going on in sort of the sort of professional societies. I think a lot of things started. Amy got asked to do PC FACS that year, and so I think there were a lot of things that were sort of mostly focused on bringing new educational quality and scholarly things to the Academy.
That must have generated some challenges too.
I think there were challenges because I think, from a sort of business point of view, the sort of deliverables for staff differed, and so we had to sort of work that out. You started in 2004, 2005, and so it was a new job for you, and you had to sort of figure out what your role was and how you worked with everyone. I think the board, again, sort of changed from the composition of the board changed. I mean, I think that, the Academy has this sort of tension that all academies have between town and gown and between hospice and palliative medicine, and I think those things caused some discussion. There was some back and forth between NHPCO about some of those issues. I mean, it was sort of normal politics. No one got impeached. There were no scandals that reached the public. So it was sort of sad in that way.
Well, it seems to me, as I remember, that we were just beginning to try to do some outreach to Washington and try to begin our public advocacy efforts. The Pachetta bill was first introduced.
Around then, I mean, there was the sort of trying to do a sort of something related to GACA started then, and so those thoughts came then. I mean, Diane Myers has been sort of very pushing about trying to get those things happening at that time, and so there was some movement then, although my sort of sense was that the year was more about internal development than external public advocacy. I think that came probably a year or two later, because I think that internally we weren't really structured for that. I mean, a lot of the sort of junior faculty stuff started then. The State of the Science started either that year or the year after. It started right around then. So all those things were sort of the big things that got started at that time. And
you've seen a number of changes in the Academy since then.
Yeah, I remember there was that one meeting that was in Phoenix or someplace in Arizona in June, and it was like 120 degrees, and we were walking across the parking lot, and Diane cursed most of the way across the parking lot, and so sort of to go from that to sort of the convention center and have 2,500 people is a bit of a change. I think the age distribution has gotten either a lot younger or I've gotten a lot older. It's probably a little bit of both. And I think that's pretty exciting that there's sort of all these sort of new people coming to the field and sort of taking it in a variety of different directions.
Do you see that as a success of the Academy, something we did well?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell what's the Academy and what's secular trends, but I think the Academy should take credit for all secular trends that move in the direction that it likes. So yeah, I think the Academy can take credit. I mean, I think that some of it is that the Academy, You know, although it's 25 years old, it's probably more in chronologic age 15 or 16, and so I think that some of what the Academy needs to do is sort of go from sort of teenage years to young adulthood, because I think there are different challenges and there are different kinds of leaders that you need for startup and for...
Say more about that.
Well, you know, for startup, you need people who focus less on making the trains run on time and more about sort of throwing lots of things up against the wall and seeing what sticks or what doesn't stick, and you know, breaking some eggs. I think the kind of leaders that you need once you become a mature organization and you're going to, you know, the AAMC, they're just different kinds of leaders, and they require different attributes. I mean, you know, some of it's going to be generational. Some of it's going to be that the organization's going to have to appeal to a much broader constituency. When there's 600 people and sort of everybody knows everybody, the infighting is different than when there are 3,000 or 4,000 people, and again, it has sort of different flavor. And so those are the positives and the negatives. I mean, I was walking yesterday through the posters, and one of the ways you can tell that we've sort of made it for good and for worse is there are a lot more advertisers in the place where the posters are, and some of that's a good thing, and some of that many of us would say is a bad thing. It's what happens when organizations grow up, and it's the tensions that organizations have to face and navigate.
Yeah. Well, as you train young people these days, what do you tell them that they need to, the skills they need to acquire to succeed?
Well, first I tell them, of course, about how much harder it was walking up the snow, up the hill, both ways, and that we didn't have shoes, and you know, people threw rocks at us, and then they just roll their eyes and don't listen to the rest of what I say. I think that the most important thing, I think, is to sort of continue to do self-development. You know, the person who is probably the smartest person I know, Tony Bach, probably spends a quarter of his time in a very intentional way learning new things, and I sort of think that would be, regardless of what you want to do, the most important thing.
Any additional thoughts to share with our
to
membership?
put people to sleep on YouTube?
No.
No. I think that's probably more than enough.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming in to do this and for your continuing leadership with the Academy.
Thanks.